Ben!
Jacob.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I am either echoing or I have something. I was echoing. I'm no longer echoing.
I can
Okay.
hear you well.
Okay. Uh yeah, so how you doing?
I'm pretty good. Had some family over this week. Um,
Family's good. I approve of family.
family's good. Family's good. Nephew and niece. Two.
I see a kitty in your lap.
Yeah, he's. I don't think he. I don't think. I don't know if he enjoyed the presence of children.
Uh yeah, so so hopefully the construction in my bathroom will be done this week or next week. But Shadow has found her preferred hiding spot, which is under the kitchen sink. Um, so I know where to find her when there's being construction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we going to talk about something or are we going to dig in?
I don't know. Um, I guess we can dig in.
Let's dig in. You want to go first or should I go first?
You wanna take the lead?
Sure. והנה מודעת זאת שהאבות הן המרכבה. So we are going to talk about this idea of a chariot, right? So
That already sounds good.
yeah, so the the patriarchs. So obviously, when we talk about the patriarchs, we're talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But this is also true of the four other shepherds, which is Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David. And they are referred to as chariots, meaning that they were so nullified in to the soul, the divine soul within them, that it was like their divine soul was like a rider on a chariot, which while the chariot exists, it is basically nullified to the rider. It becomes an extension of the rider. שכל ימיהם לעולם לא הפסיקו אפילו שעה אחת מלקשר דעתם ונשמתם לריבון העולמים. That they were completely and continually connected to the master of all worlds. בביטול הנזכר לעיל לייחודו יתברך, in this surrender, they're translating it, bitul, nullification, that we talked about earlier, to God's unity. ואחריהם כל הנביאים, כל אחד לפי מדרגת נשמתו והשגתו. And so any prophet that came in varying degrees was similarly echoes of how the shepherds had nullified themselves to God. Umadrigat Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, he ha'olam ha'ola al kulana she'amru alav shchina medaberet mitoch grono shel Moshe. And in at least one aspect, Moses was in a higher respect than all of the rest of them, since it is said that from the Zohar that the divine spirit, the divine presence spoke out of the throat of Moses. ומעין זה זכו ישראל במעמד Har Sinai, and so a similar type of thing was a privilege that Israel had at Mount Sinai. רק שלא יכלו לסבול, but we were not able to endure it. Yeah, we're not able to withstand that level of revelation. Kamamar Rabbeinu Zechronam Bracha Sha'al Kol Dibur Parcha Nishmatan, that every word that Hashem spoke, the first two of the 10 commandments or 10 words, 10 statements were said by God Himself, and at each statement, our souls, as it were, left our bodies, and we had to be resurrected. Shahu inyan bitul b'mitziut hanizkar la'el. That is being completely nullified to God, as we discussed above. And miyad amar lahem la'asot lo mishkan uvo kadshe hakadashim. That's why right after the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai was the commandment given for the tabernacle, which had within it the Holy of Holies.
So
yeah.
So they were not able to sustain the presence of God to that extent within them. So God told them to create a space where that presence can be sustained.
Yeah, because they were unable to live with this feeling of self-surrender before God. Yeah.
Interesting.
Lahashra'at shchinato, so that His presence could dwell there. Shahu gilui yichudo yitbarach kemo yitbarach lakama. Like we're going to explain, that is a revelation of godliness. Umeshar charav beit hamikdash, and since the temple has been destroyed, ein lakadosh baruch hu ba'olamo mishkan umachon l'shivto. God does not have a place to be revealed in the same way. Hu yichodo yitbarach ela arba'a amot shel halacha. God is only truly revealed in the 4 cubits of halacha. Shehu retzono yitbarach v'chuchmato hamelubashim b'halachot ha'aruchot lefanenu. Because God is being revealed to us through His divine will, right? So when we say the halacha is that this, that this is kasher, or this is taref, right? That this is something that can be eaten or cannot be eaten. We are revealing God's will in this world regarding that particular thing. And this is a revelation of God's godliness, similar to how it was in the Beit Mikdash, in the temple. Yeah.
And I guess this might be a stretch, but just because we spoke about this yesterday at the book club. But is that the same sense of the idea of the nitzutzot, where in everything you can reveal the aspect of godliness?
Okay, so the nitzutzot, right? So we talk about kudsha brichu shchinte, right?
Mhm.
So we talk about the upper aspect and we talk about the lower aspect.
Right.
So when it comes to the nitzotzot kedusha, they are those things which have fallen into the world, right? And then when you bring them to where they should be, you have a revelation of God's of Kudsha Brihu with Shchinte.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we talk about, for example, so when you talk about, for example, saying a bracha and eating a something, right?
Yep.
In order for that thing to exist, it must have a netzotz of kedusha that in some way is animating its existence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring it to where it should be within the 4 cubits of halacha, you are uniting it with Yehudo Yitbarach and revealing godliness in the world.
So is that the revelation of the nitzot?
Yeah, that is when you are returning it to its correct place,
Right.
you are revealing its purpose in creation.
Okay. Makes sense.
ולכן, and therefore, אחר שיעמיק האדם מחשבתו בעניין ביטול הנזכר לעיל כפי יכולתו, זאת ישיב אל ליבו. When somebody thinks about this nullification, he should think in this manner. כי מיות קטן שכלי ושורש נשמתי מהכיל. The capacity of my intelligence and of my soul's root is too limited. להיות מרכבה ומשכן לייחודו יתברך באמת לאמיתו. Right? I am not worthy to be a merkava like the Avot were. מאחר דלית מחשבה דלי tefisa, because my thoughts cannot actually grasp God. ומסגת בו יתברך כלל וכלל שום השגה בעולם. Right? We're not at the level to reach, like Moses did, true godliness. Velo shemetz menhu mehasagat ha'avot hanevi'im, and not even at one iota of that which the patriarchs and the prophets did. Lazot e'eseh lo mishkan u'machon leshivto hu ha'esek בתלמוד תורה כפי הפנאי שלי בקביעות עתים ביום ובלילה. This being so, I will make him a sanctuary and an abode by studying Torah at fixed times by night and by day and by night, to the extent of my free time. So, to explain what he's saying, right? You have the Avot who were capable of creating an abode for godliness at a level that is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that capacity of permanence, but we can be kovea, we can create a certain vessel, a certain area in which that is kavua, that is something permanent. And through what?
An erev.
An eruv?
Eruv.
Yeah, in a sense, I guess. Yeah, an eruv, right? So, right, creates a sort of community in which it is God's abode. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Didn't think of it like that, but it's true. Um, כדת הניתנה לכל אחד ואחד בהלכות תלמוד תורה. As is, it's something that's given even to people of normal capacity in the hilchot of Talmud Torah. Kama'amar Rabbeinu Zichronam Lebracha, like the sages say, afilu perek achad shachrit hulu, right? Even one chapter in the morning, right? If we set this small amount, then we have truly grabbed at something real, right? Tafasta maruba lo tafasta. If you grab too much, it's as if you had no, you did not actually grab. But when you take something small, something that you have a capacity of doing, right? You're making a kinyan. You're truly allowing yourself to to bring godliness into your life.
Mhm.
Uvazeh yismach libo v'yagil, and you should be very happy about this. V'yiten hoda'a al chalko b'simcha uv'tuv lavav, and he should be grateful with a joyous heart that this is something that he has a capacity to do. Al shezacha lihyot ushpezichan lagavura pa'amim b'chol pamayim b'chol yom, that he is like one of the shepherds, ushpezin, right? To God at least twice a day. Kefi ha'et v'hapanai shelo b'misat yado asher hichiv Hashem lo. Right? In that which he has a capacity of doing. Ve'im yarchiv Hashem lo od, and if it is something he is so fortunate that he would have even more. Azai tahor yadayim yosif ometz, he whose hands are pure will increase his effort. Umachshava tova, and a good intention is as good as. So he's telling you, okay, you're not on this great level to be constantly doing that which God wants, but you can start out with something small, right? If nothing else, simply saying Shema every morning and every evening, right? And anything you add to that, already you're growing beyond that minimum. וגם שאר היום כולו שעוסק במשא ומתן יהיה מכון לשבטו יתברך בנתינת הצדקה שייתן מגיעו, right? And the rest of the day he's doing work and he's hopefully earning a living, and he can give a little to charity, and through that he becomes he's doing God's will in the world. Right? Because to be compassionate is one of God's attributes, and if we are compassionate, we're becoming more godly. And like it says in the Tikkunei Zohar, that kindness is the right arm of God, so to speak. Va'af she'eno noten ela chomesh, and even if he gives no more than a fifth of his earnings. That's the most you can halachically give. Hare hachomesh ma'ale imo kol harba yadot LaHashem. That fifth brings all the other 4 parts to God. Lihyot machon leshivto yitbarach, so that they also become an abode for God. Kanoda mamar rabbeinu zechara lebracha shemitzvat tzedakah shkula keneged kol hakorbanot. Like our sages said, that giving tzedakah is like all of the sacrifices together. U'korbanot haya kol hachai ole LaHashem al yedei behema achat, v'kol hatzomeach al yedei isaron solet achad balul v'shemen. Right, and we so in the sacrifices, right, you bring an animal, and that animal, as it were, represents the entirety of all living creatures. Or you bring some meal, right, and that includes all that is vegetation and so forth, right? Similarly, when you give some tzedakah, everything you earn is connected to godliness. Umilvad zeh. And more than this, Hare b'shat haTorah v'tefillah oleh LaHashem kol ma she'achal v'shata v'neineh me'arba hayadot lebriut gufo kamo she'itbar lakaman. Like we're going to explain, when he is either learning Torah or he is praying, right? What he eats and drinks and takes care of his body the rest of the day, that is becoming a sort of it's being involved with those moments. And really, since those are the most important moments, those are the ikar, the rest becomes tafel.
What becomes tafel?
So I'll tell you a story. There was a chassid, I believe, of the Rebbe Rashab, if I remember correctly, who was had a job working at the Tsar's court.
Mm-hmm.
And once a year, he would come and visit the Rebbe Rashab. And so when he was at court, he wore a court dress.
Yep.
And when he came back to the Rebbe's court, he would dress like a chassid. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So one year, he came dressed in the court clothes of how he dressed in front of the Tsar. And the Rebbe said to him, what's different? And he said, I decided that I could no longer be, that I should not try to deceive the Rebbe. This is how I dress the rest of the year. And so I decided to come in the same clothes that I wear the rest of the year to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe's response was, I always knew that you wore court clothing to the Tsar, and you wore Hasidic clothing when you came to me. But I thought that when you were at the Tsar's court, you were deceiving him, and when you came to me, you were revealing your true self.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The question is, what is your true self, and what you are doing the rest of, right? If you spend the rest of your day, right, and you're doing business in order so that you would have free time to pray and to study Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the ikar, the real thing, the real essence of your life, where you derive meaning, dare I say, is the Torah and mitzvot, and everything else is something that is for the necessity of those times of Torah and mitzvot. Similarly, if you're you're working so that, okay, you can give a fifth to tzedakah, even though you're giving a fifth to tzedakah, right? The other 4/5 are for the purpose of being able to give that fifth to tzedakah. The question is, what is actually that which you are trying to accomplish, and what is something that leads up to that, right? What's the actual goal, and what's something that helps you arrive at that goal?
Yeah, it's like I think it's Heschel, like the Sabbath. And he says that for him, like the week was just him walking towards the Sabbath.
Right. Even though it's 6 days of thing for the seventh day, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what's the ikar and what's the tafel? Okay.
I wonder how much to derail this conversation.
Derail it. We have plenty of time.
Now, because I might be repeating myself, but I'm just thinking because I have this idea of, and the example that comes to mind now. So I spoke to this with Chezi too, but especially now, where there are calls to help the community.
Mm-hmm.
You can either donate money or support or do things around, or you can also wear tefillin or light Shabbat candles. So there's this a version that I see also from different people, and in myself as well, even
Mm-hmm.
though I would say now to a lesser extent for sure.
Mm-hmm.
um so I'm not just judging other people, but I definitely I see that a version of like how is this, like, why do I need, like, how is this helpful, or like why.
So
So I guess
have you
there's
seen
something with a current appeal here.
yeah, so you've heard those, you've seen those memes, uh thoughts in pairs, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So like thoughts and prayers becomes, you know, and it's a real question. The
Yeah.
question is, what do you believe is the ikar, and what do you believe, right? And honestly, this is one of the ways in which, I don't know if you saw when I went on Grail Country when they were discussing the situation with Hezi,
Not
right?
yet, but yeah, I'd send my watch later.
So the question becomes, okay, is what is the ikar? What is the actual way that we accomplish the coming of Mashiach? That when we get to the final destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it seems obvious that it's not merely about the people who may be living in Jerusalem and learning Torah there, right? Uh, I think that in order for the world to be a place of Torah and Mashiach and the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven, I think that it is very important that also in Los Angeles, right, there be this type of Torah being made evident, right? Halacha and God's will being made evident in the world in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And Chazi would probably say, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udvar Hashem miyerushalayim, that the this Torah and teaching and spirituality has to come forth from Jerusalem. And I'm not sure we disagree all that much, right? This is part of the reason why I think, for example, Chazi has found it so important to be involved in my channel, right? I just think that certain things which much of the Jewish community has busied itself with are not the proper way forward, right? I don't think the internal politics of a government in Israel is, while it's certainly interesting to me, especially because I have friends and family who live there,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's difficult. It's difficult, right? It's a question of priorities. But I certainly think that whether or not we put on tefillin and study Torah is far more important than whether we go out on, go protest somewhere, right? In support, right? I don't see protests as being productive ways of moving the world towards the coming of Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly, ultimately, it's a question of what is halacha, right? That is the question of halacha, right? What are my priorities? What does halacha say I should be doing, right? Is it more important for me to be in Los Angeles with my family and friends, or should I just take an airplane ticket and go to Jerusalem and study in a yeshiva? And there are certainly a lot of people who would say, go buy a ticket and move to Jerusalem. And Chazi might be one of them.
Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I just wanted to connect my thoughts. I mean, I appreciate you going into it, but just to bring it back, I just wanted to connect my thoughts about the Ikar and the Tefel, what we should consider our main thing versus it's the same thing with the right hand and the left hand, I guess, to an extent.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Okay.
What do you mean?
What do I mean? In terms of using is not the right word, I think, but using chesed as a way to interact in the world, as opposed to using din, punishment, judgment. I don't know what the right yeah, but the punishment, the judgment is not the thing that you want to focus on. And I mean, yeah. So I can definitely see that. There are certain things that you don't want to be proud of, or that you shouldn't be that proud of. And maybe certain, as great it is as it is, certain exports, being the leader of certain exports might not be the best thing that you want to be known for. But even though it's a great, in a way, it's a great thing to do, but it's still not the cup. But
yeah. So like, this is one of my things with. I talk about Michael Servetus a lot, right? And while it's nice and well that he was a Unitarian, the most important thing for me is that he actually spent most of his time being a doctor.
Being what?
A doctor.
A doctor, okay.
He was a physician. Same thing by Maimonides.
The Rambam?
Yeah. Maimonides was a physician. Nachmanides was a physician. Right? So that, right? Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvakot, Melok Kol Haaretz Kavodo. Right? Mm-hmm. God is holy, 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 but the world is filled with his glory. Right? And so, this back and forth of holiness versus the mundane, right? It's a constant struggle. And the fact is that the mundane does take up a vast majority of your time. It's 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th shall be the Sabbath to Hashem your God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, weiter. והנה בכל פרטי מיני שמחות הנפש הנזכר לעיל, אין מהן מניעה להיות נבזה בעיניו נמאס ולב נשבר ורוח נמוכה בשעת השמחה ממש. So, even though we talked about all this form of joy, this does not mean that he can't have shame and despised in his own eyes, right? And have a broken heart and humble spirit, even when he is happy about certain things. מאחר כי היותו נבזה בעיניו וכולו, הוא מצד הגוף ונפש הבהמית, when he realizes that the lowliness should come from the material animal soul, והיותו בשמחה, and his joy, הוא מצד נפש האלוקית, the joy and meaning in his life comes from the holiness of his divine soul. וניצות אלוקות המלובש בא להחיותה, and the spark of holiness that is enclosed in it to animate it, כנזכר לעיל בפרק למד א'. Right? So the two are simultaneous. There's a joy at there's the joy of the spiritual, and there's the brokenheartedness of the material. Uchahai gavna ita bezohar, like it is explained in the Zohar, bechiyat kia beliba misitrada, v'chedvat kia beliba a misitrada. Right? So the weeping is from one side, and the joy is lodged in the other. So both at once.
Mm-hmm.
Got it?
And we'll see. It'll take me a lifetime to figure it out. Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. והנה לתוספת ביור תיבת לעשותו. Let us elucidate still further the term that you may do it. וגם להבין מעט מזעיר תכלית בריאת הבינונים. Let us also understand in a very small measure the purpose in creating Binonim. Okay, so this is like the people who are not tzaddikim but not reshaim. וירידת נשמותיהם לעולם הזה להתלבש בנפש הבהמית שמהקליפה וסטרא אחא. Also, the purpose of their soul's descent to this world being clothed within an animal soul deriving from the klipa and the sitra acha. מאחר שלא יוכלו לשלחה כל ימיהם ולדחותה ממקומה מחלל השמאלי שבלב, since they will not be able to banish the animal soul throughout their lives, nor even dislodge it from its place in the left part of the heart, שלא יעלו ממנה הרהורים אל המוח, so that no evil imaginings rise from it to the brain. כי מהותה ועצמותה של נפש הבהמית שמהקליפה היא בתקפה ובגבורתה אצלם כתודלתה. Inasmuch as in the Beinonim the essence of the animal soul derived from the klipa remains in its full strength and potency at birth, רק שלבושיה אינם מתלבשים בגופם כנזכר לעיל, except that its garments do not clothe themselves in their body.
He's asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have these Beinonim who, despite the fact that they do good their entire lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not completely destroying this capacity of evil to try to take over them, right? So why is this a good thing that God would allow their souls to come into the world like this, into a body that has the nefesh habahamit from klipa and sitra achra, right?
Right.
That's the question.
Why is it? Yeah, that we are that the Beinonim are come into this world with this clothing, like you said, the nefesh habahamit, the animal soul. ואם כן, למה זה ירדו נשמותיהם לעולם הזה, ליגע, לריק, חס ושלום, להילחם כל ימיהם עם היצר ולא יכלו לו? Why then did their souls descend to this world to strive in vain, God forbid, waging war all their lives against their evil inclination, yet never being able to vanquish it, to fully vanquish it? ותהי זו נחמתם לנחמם בכפליים לתושייה ולשמח ליבם בהשם השוכן איתם בתוך תורתם ועבודתם. So let this forthcoming explanation be their solace to comfort them in a double measure of aid and to gladden their hearts in God who dwells among them in their Torah and divine service. Okay. והוא בהקדים לשון הינוקה, בזוהר פרשת בלק, על פסוק החכם עיניו בראשו. The above mentioned difficulties will be resolved by clarifying first the comment of the Yanuka, quoted in the Zohar, Parashat Balak, on the verse, the wise man's eyes are in his head. So, first of all, the Yanuka, who is this one of the authors of with one
Zohar?
of the
No. So in the Zohar, there is a small child who speaks very wisely, and he's referred to as Yenuka because Yonek means to nurse,
right?
And he's still a toddler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. וכי בן אתר עינוי דבר נש וכולי.
Einoi דבר nash. What other place would the eyes of a man be, right? Other than in his head, right? Because it says, Hechacham einad berosho. What does that mean?
Yeah, they're
Right?
supposed to be.
Ela kra hachi hu vada.
So yeah, the meaning of this verse is as follows: ditatnan,
Ditnan, as we
ditnan.
teach.
You want me to try this, or
Okay.
you want
La
me to
lo
embarrass myself
yahach
and live
barnash begiluya deresha arba amot. My timer, the shchinta sharia al reshin. You can read the translation.
So we have learned that a man must not go 4 cubits while bareheaded. Why? Because the Shekhinah rests upon his head. Right.
V'chol chacham enohi umiloi beresha enun b'hahu desharia v'kaima al reshin.
Therefore, every wise man has his eyes, his interest and concern, and his speech concentrated in his head, in the light of the Shekhinah which rests and abides above his head.
Okay, so he's saying that Einav, right?
Mm-hmm.
That which he is paying attention to, the Rosho. It's in his mind, in his that where God's Shekhinah is.
Yeah, where it rests.
Mhm.
Okay.
V'chad einoi taman lindad hahu nahora the adlik al reshe itzrich lemishch.
Now, when his eyes are there, he must know that this light kindled above his head requires oil.
Interesting. Okay. This is a lot of what you call it, Aramaic. Begin the gufa davar nash ihu patila unahora adlik le'ela. Aha, right. So this is something that the Alter Rebbe says a lot, that a man's soul is like a light, right? So his body is like the wick, and his soul is like a flame within him that makes him try to uh, be more elevated.
Right. This is that's that's what we discussed about Moshe and the people and how they are his feet.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So it is the wick or the oil or the wax.
Yeah. For man's body is the wick that retains the luminous flame, and the light is kindled above it.
Mm-hmm.
Ushlomo Malka Tzavach Va'amar, and Solomon cried out and said, "V'shemen al roshecha al yechsar."
And thus King Solomon cried out, saying, "Let there be no lack of oil above your head."
The ha nahora means light. The
Mhm.
v'rosho itzrich lemishcha, mishcha means oil. Ve'inun ovadan tavan, and these are good deeds.
Right. So for the light over his head requires oil, meaning good deeds.
Ve'al da hechacham einav berosho, and for this reason,
Right.
einav
And for this
berosho.
reason, the wise man's eyes are in his head to ensure that he never lacks oil, good deeds for this light.
Interesting. I'm not sure I completely understand what he's saying.
So
Ad kan lashono. So this is a very long quotation of the Zohar,
yeah.
which hopefully he will explain more.
Well, what I understand for now, if I dare say so, I mean, like he's saying, like the eyes are in his head, meaning there is, his perspective is from that ideal. So it's almost like this movement of like your deeds only make sense if you're aiming for that ideal, or not only make sense, but they are optimized only if your eyes are truly looking at ideals, so you know how it looks like. It's almost like when you're drawing, maybe, and you're looking at a model.
Right.
If your eyes on that model, you can kind of figure out the right way to draw it.
סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה.
Right. Yeah.
So let's see if that's what he says.
Okay. והנה ביור משל זה שהמשיל אור השכינה לאור הנר. The meaning of this analogy, comparing the light of the Shekhinah to the light of the candle, is clear to every intelligent person, as the Alter Rebbe will conclude shortly after a closer examination of its details, just as is it true of the candle's flame. Okay. שאינו מאיר ונאחז בפתילה בלי שמן, that it does not shed light, nor is it retained by the wick without oil.
You want to read the thing?
I can, yeah.
Yeah.
By nature, so the note says, by nature, fire strains upward. It will not remain below unless restrained by a wick or wood, for example. But a wick alone is rapidly consumed and the fire vanishes quickly. Moreover, the burning wick produces a dim and smoky light, for it consists of material insufficiently refined to be completely absorbed by the flame. Oil, on the other hand, is completely transformed into the flame and absorbed by it, burning steadily. It produces a pure and clear light. This is what is meant by the Alter Rebbe's statement that without oil, the flame of the candle, A, does not shed light, and B, nor is it retained by the wick. Okay? וכך אין השכינה שורה על גוף האדם שנמשל לפתילה, אלא על ידי מעשים טובים דווקא. Similarly, the Shekhinah does not rest upon man's body, which is compared to a wick, except through man's performing good deeds. Right, so the body is the wick and the deeds are the oil.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The body can only act as the wick, not as the oil. It is a coarse physical being which will not be absorbed but within the light of the Shekhinah, but will always remain separate from it. The good deeds are the oil, provide the oil. ולא די לו בנשמתו שהיא חלק אלוהה ממעל, להיות היא כשמן לפתילה. It is evident from the Zohar, however, that one's soul, although a part of God above, is insufficient to serve as oil for the wick. מבואר ומובן לכל משכיל. So this is clear and understandable to every intelligent person.
Is it?
כי הנה נשמת האדם, אפילו הוא צדיק גמור, עובד השם ביראה ואהבה בתענוגים. For the soul of a man, even if he is a perfect tzaddik who serves God with fear and with a pleasurable love, אף על פי כן אינה בטלה במציאות לגמרי, להיבטל ולהיכלל באור השם ממש, להיות לאחדים ומיוחדים בייחוד גמור. Is nevertheless not utterly nullified out of existence, so that it might be dissolved into and absorbed within God's light to be merged with it within perfect unity.
Right, so even a tzaddik does not, as it were, become completely spiritual and godly. Right?
So, okay, רק הוא דבר בפני עצמו, ירא השם ואוהבו. It is rather a separate entity which fears God and loves him. Okay. מה שאין כן המצוות ומעשים טובים שאין רצונו יתברך, not so with mitzvot and good deeds which are God's will.
Right? So when you are doing God's will, right, you are in essence becoming an extension of God in the world.
Right. Okay. So this is where the story about Moses telling the angels why are humans worthy, and this is also why Abraham, or one commentary about Abraham crying over the death of Sarah, because she is compared to the body and he is compared to the soul, and the soul will cry out for the lack of a body because it cannot perform the mitzvot.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So, ורצונו יתברך הוא מקור החיים לכל העולמות והברואים. Now, God's will is the source of life for all the worlds and all creatures. שיורד אלוהים על ידי צמצומים רבים והסתר פנים של רצון העליון ברוך הוא וירידת המדרגות.
שירד עליהם.
שירד.
That it descends upon them.
Yeah. So let me read this, the whole thing. The difference between the divine will expressed in mitzvot and that same will as expressed in creation lies in the latter's in creation, in the latter's descending to them by means of many contractions and by concealment of the countenance. So this is the klipa and the nitzot.
Well, I mean, we're not even getting into the question of klipa yet, but like to be actually in the world, right, all the way down to Asiyah, requires godliness to go through many tzimtzumim, right, many contractions.
Yeah. Okay, so i.e. the internal aspect of the supernal will with only the external superficial aspect of God's will expressing itself in creation and through a descent from level to level. Okay. עד שיוכלו להתהוות ולהיבראות יש מאין ודבר נפרד בפני עצמו ולא יבטלו במציאות כנזכר לעיל. So all these steps were necessary so that it would be possible for the worlds and creatures to come into being and to be created ex nihilo as separate entities without becoming nullified out of existence as mentioned above. מה שאין כן, המצוות שאין פנימית רצונו יתברך ואין שם הסתר פנים כלל. The mitzvot, on the other hand, are the internal aspect of divine will. There, the countenance is not hidden at all.
So,
right.
So, for example, your tefillin, right? They exist as something that is separate from God, right? As yesh, as something that exists.
She wants to go on to the same.
But But when you put on tefillin, right, the mitzvah itself is a revelation of godliness. The act is a revelation of godliness in ways that the chefetz, that thing itself, is not.
Yeah. And it's like the idea of a chair versus an instantiation. I lost the word.
Yes, in a sense, but when you sit on a chair, right, then that chair is actually, that's when the chair becomes a chair, right?
Right. Okay. So we're talking
It's
about purpose.
actually that you're turning the chair into a seat, right?
Mhm.
By sitting upon it, right? So that's a greater revelation of the chairness of the chair when you sit in it than the mere existence of the chair itself.
Right. So do we want to read the example here?
Sure.
To illustrate this further, one engages in business so that he will realize a profit and thereby support his family. In all, he wants the business to prosper, wants the profits, and wants to provide for his family. Yet his true inner will lies only in supporting his family. His desire for profit is merely incidental, external to this will, and his desire for business even more so. So too with the divine will is expressed in creation, is expressed in the mitzvot. The desire for creation is an external will. It is generated by the ultimate desire the Jews observe the mitzvot. Obviously, an impossibility without a created world. Right. So, I mean, if you have a purpose of resting,
Mm.
you want to rest, a chair is a tool to do that, but also a bed and also a carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah. אין החיות שבהם דבר נפרד בפני עצמו כלל. So, because the mitzvot represents God's true inner will, the godly life force within them is by no means a separate entity. אלא הוא מיוחד ונכלל ברצונו יתברך, והיו לאחדים ממש בייחוד גמור. But is united with and contained within God's will, and they, the mitzvot, are truly joined in perfect unity with His will. It's interesting how all of this is interacting with my reading of the guide as well.
Mm.
I feel it's good that I'm reading this while it's definitely.
I believe it. I've never actually read the guide myself.
Yeah. והנה עניין השראת השכינה. The resting of the Shekhinah means, so i.e. when we single out a specific object from a world filled with the Shekhinah by saying that the divine presence rests upon this object with its uniqueness lies in, הוא גילוי אלוהותו יתברך ואור אין סוף ברוך הוא באיזה דבר. The revelation of godliness and the Ein Sof light. In
right.
that,
So God is everywhere. Why is it that we say God's presence is in one particular thing?
Specifically rests upon one thing.
Yeah.
והיינו לומר שאותו דבר נכלל באור השם ובטל לו במציאות לגמרי. This means to say that this object is comprised within God's light and is nullified out of existence towards Him. It has no separate identity. Right, so I feel like there is some example for this. I mean, tefillin, I guess, is obviously like there is no other use for tefillin.
Well, I mean, if you are wearing the tefillin, right, then yes. Like, but if the tefillin is just sitting there and you're not actually doing a mitzvah with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the point he's talking about, right? So we talk about a world, right? Obviously, the entire world, it only exists because God makes it exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about certain things being revelations of godliness, being holy, right? Because those things are revelations of God's will in the world in a way that other things aren't.
Because they are
at that moment being used to do that which God wants.
Right. Okay. שאז הוא ששורה ומתגלה בו השם אחד. For only then can the one God rest upon it, the object, and reveal himself in it. אבל כל מה שלא בטל אליו, במציאות לגמרי, אין אור השם שורה ומתגלה בו. But anything not completely nullified out of existence toward the godly light cannot have God's light rest and reveal itself within it. ואף צדיק גמור שמתדבק בו באהבה רבה, הרי לית מחשבה תפיסה בה, כלל באמת. Even a perfect tzaddik who cleaves to him with abundant love, no thought can truly grasp him at all.
The mere fact that he loves God doesn't actually grasp God, doesn't actually reveal God in the world.
Right. כי אמיתת השם אלוהים אמת, הוא ייחודו ואחדותו, שהוא לבדו, שהוא ואפס בלעדו ממש. הוא ואפס בלעדו ממש. For the true implication of the phrase, God is the true Lord, is his unity and oneness, that he alone exists, and there is absolutely nothing besides him. ואם כן זה האוהב, שהוא יש ולא אפס, לית מחשבה, דילה, תפיסה בכלל. If so, this person, the tzaddik, who loves God and is a separate being, is a separate being rather than a non-entity. No thought of his can grasp him at all.
Right. So that tzaddik, merely in loving God, he's like something other than God that loves God, right? But when that tzaddik is manifesting godliness by doing God's will, right, he becomes nullified to God.
Right. So it's kind of like it's not enough to grasp an idea in your mind. It has to be revealed within your body.
Yes.
Through your body.
Yeah. Then you're representing God in the world.
Right. This is another way of him saying touch grass.
Touch grass might be a good way of putting this, yes.
Right. ואין אור השם שורה ומתגלה בו, אלא על ידי קיום המצוות, שהן רצונו וחוכמתו יתברך ממש, בלי שום הסתר פנים. So, like we said, that the tzaddik cannot just grasp God and become one. And therefore, God's light does not abide or manifest itself in him except through the fulfillment of the mitzvot, which constitute his actual will, God's actual will and wisdom, without any concealment of countenance. וכאשר שמעתי ממורי עליו השלום, which is remind me.
This is the Magid.
The Magid, okay, the Magid of Masrich, who is also the student of the
Baal Shem Tov.
וכאשר שמעתי ממורי עליו השלום, פירוש וטעם למה שכתוב בעץ חיים, שאור אין סוף ברוך הוא אינו מתייחד אפילו בעולם האצילות, אלא על ידי התלבשותו תחילה בספירת חוכמה. This accords with what I heard from my teacher, the Maggid of Mezrich, peace upon him, on the meaning of the reason behind the statement of Etz Chaim, that the Ein Sof light does not unite itself even with the world of Atzilut, emanation, except by first vesting itself in the attribute of Chokhmah, wisdom. Why Chokhmah specifically?
Good question. This is what he's going to explain.
Great stuff. והיינו, משום שאין סוף ברוך הוא אחד האמת, שהוא לבדו הוא ואין זולתו, וזוהי מדרגת חוכמה וכו'. This is because the Ein Sof is the true one, which means that he alone exists and there is not besides him. And this, in fact, is the level of Chokhmah.
Chokhmah is koach ma. It is undifferentiated. It's undifferentiated seed of inspiration. So he's saying, in order for Ein Sof to come down to this world, it has to start with this, the koach ma, with this bitul, with this nullification.
Mm-hmm.
If I understand him correctly. I mean, we can read the notes if you want to.
Let's see. So, the attribute of Chokhmah represents the perception of godliness as the sole existing being. This then is the meaning of the Ein Sof's clothing itself in the attribute of Chokhmah. The revelation of the Ein Sof is one alone, without not besides him. And for this reason, the Ein Sof does not unite with any world or level except by way of Chokhmah. For as stated above, God abides, may be united with, only where there is no sense of self or separation from him, only in that which is pervaded with the spirit of he alone and not besides him. And this spirit constitutes the attribute of Chokhmah as stated.
This note expresses a profound Hasidic concept. After further study of the Tanya, we will understand it more clearly. I think he's talking about koach ma, with the capacity of what, with that nullification of chokhmah, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I'm waiting to understand it better. והנה כשאדם עוסק בתורה, אזי נשמתו שהיא נפשו האלוהית, עם שני לבושיה הפנימיים לבדם, שהם כוח הדיבור ומחשבה. When a person studies Torah, using the powers of thought and speech, his neshama, his divine soul with its two inner garments only, vis-a-vis the faculties of speech and thought, נכללות באור השם אין סוף ברוך הוא ומיוחדות בו בייחוד גמור, are absorbed within the light of God, the Ein Sof, blessed be he, and are merged within it in perfect unity.
So when you're learning Torah, your mind and your speech are involved in it. Masha'en can, when you do a mitzvah, your entire body is.
והיא השראת השכינה על נפשו האלוהית, כמאמר רבותינו זיכרונה לברכה, שאפילו אחד שיושב ועוסק בתורה, שכינה עמו. This constitutes the resting of the Shekhinah on his divine soul. As our sages have said, when even one person applies himself diligently to Torah study, the Shekhinah is with him. Right. Yoshev v'osek. Yeah, I think I spoke with Chezi, and I think one of the commentaries that he said is about when you Yoshev, it means that you're engaged in something. Like there's a difference. Yoshev b'moshav letzim. Yoshev v'osek Torah. Yoshev meaning you're not just like, visiting. You're actually sitting down and doing something intentionally and for an amount of time. אך כדי להמשיך אור והארת השכינה גם על גופו ונפשו הבהמית, שהיא החיונית המלובשת בגופו ממש, however, in order to draw the light and radiance of the Shekhinah upon his body, an animal soul as well, i.e. upon the vitalizing soul actually clothed in the body, צריך לקיים מצוות מעשיות הנעשות על ידי הגוף ממש. One must fulfill the practical mitzvot which are performed with the body itself, שאז כוח הגוף ממש שבעשייה זו נכלל באור השם ובו רצונו ומיוחד בו בייחוד גמור. In this way, the actual power of the body engaged in this act, tefillin, for example, is absorbed in the divine light and will and merges with it in perfect unity. Right, so this is like the riding the donkey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
והוא לבוש השלישי של נפש האלוהית. So this power of the body constitutes the third garment of the divine soul, action. ואזי גם כוח נפש החיונית שבגופו, ממש מקליפת נוגה. Then in addition, the power of the vitalizing soul actually clothed within the body, the power of that soul derived from klipat noga.
So the body comes from klipat noga, right? It has a capacity to shine, right? And in doing a mitzvah with it, he is in fact causing it to shine.
Right, it's like it's like letting the naughty kid in class somehow getting this him also engaged in some kind of a productive activity.
Yeah.
The whole classes. Yeah. So נתהפך מרע לטוב ונכלל ממש בקדושה כנפש האלוהית ממש. So by doing this action and taking the body and engaging the body in this action, the klipat noga is transformed from evil to good and is actually absorbed into holiness, exactly like the divine soul. מאחר שהוא הפועל ועושה מעשה המצווה, for it is the power of the animal soul that implements and performs the act that constitutes the mitzvah. שבלעדו לא הייתה נפש האלוהית פועלת בגוף כלל, כי היא רוחנית, והגוף גשמי וחומרי. For without the power of the animal soul, the divine soul would not affect the body at all, since it is spiritual, and the body is physical and corporeal. והממוצע ביניהם היא נפש חיונית בהמית המלובשת בדם האדם שבליבו וכל הגוף. The intermediary between them is the vitalizing animal soul clothed in man's blood, which is in his heart and throughout his body. ואף שמהותה ועצמותה של נפש הבהמית שבליבו, שאין מידותיה הרעות, עדיין לא נכללו בקדושה, although the substance and essence of the animal soul in his heart, its evil midot or evil emotional characters have still not been absorbed into holiness. מכל מקום, מאחר דאידחפין לקדושה, ובעל כורחן עונין אמן, ומסכימין ומתרצין לעשיית המצווה. Yet, because the evil midot, are subjugated to the holiness, and against their will they say amen, agreeing and acceding to the performance of the mitzvah. על ידי התגברות נפשו האלוהית שבמוח ששליט על הלב, through the strengthening of the divine soul in the brain, which masters the heart. ואין בשעה זו בבחינת גלות ושינה כנזכר לעיל, and the evil at such time, when you exercise this mastery, are in a state of exile and sleep, as mentioned above in chapter 12. והוא לכך אין זו מניעה מהשראת השכינה על גוף האדם בשעה זאת. Therefore, this incorrigible nature of the animal soul's evil midot does not prevent the Shekhinah from resting on one's body at this time. So, actually, this is a I feel like this is like also a great point in terms of like when people think about in binary terms of like no, this person can't be part of our group because he has this aspect or this particular aspect. But I guess what this is saying is that the ikar of his current existence is that he is controlled by his good midot, and so
at least for a moment,
at least
for at that time, and at that time, he is revealing godliness in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. דהיינו שכוח נפש החיונית המלובש בעשיית המצווה. So this resting of the Shekhinah means that the power of the animal soul clothed in the act that constitutes the mitzvah הוא נכלל ממש באור השם ומיוחד בו בייחוד גמור, is actually absorbed into the divine light and merges with it in perfect unity. ועל ידי זה, can you go down? ועל ידי זה ממשיך הערה לכללות נפש החיונית שבכל הגוף וגם על הגוף הגשמי. Thereby one draws down a ray of that light upon the totality of the animal soul throughout the body and upon the entire body as well. בבחינת מקיף מלמעלה מראשו ועד רגליו, in a manner of encompassing from above, from head to foot. וזהו שכתוב, דשכינתא שריה, שריה, על רישיה. רישה. על, דייקה.
Yeah, al davka.
Al dafka, right.
Yeah.
So this explains the expression from the Zohar, the Shekhinah rests upon his head, specifically upon, so encompassing him from above. וכן אכל בי אסרה שכינתא
Sharia.
Yeah, this is difficult. Upon
You'll learn Aramaic, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does Duolingo have Aramaic?
I don't think so.
And in a similar vein, the expression upon every assembly of 10 Jews, the divine presence rests. והנה כל בחינת המשכת אור השכינה, שהיא בחינת גילוי אור אינסוף ברוך הוא. None of these various forms in which the light of the Shekhinah is manifested, meaning the ways in which the Ensof light is revealed, אינו נקרא שינוי חס ושלום בו יתברך וללא ריבוי, can be construed as a change in himself or as a plurality.
Right, so this thing that we say that God is revealed in these ways doesn't, chas v'shalom, mean that he's somehow many or that there's some form of change in God himself.
Right, it's almost like a light that's reflected in a mirror.
Yeah.
Ki de'aita b'sanhedrin. You want to take this?
Well, as it is in Sanhedrin is the tractate. Ita is the Aramaic form of yesh. Oh, you want, okay. So the Amar Le that he said to him, Hahu Mina, that heretic, L'Rabban Gamliel, Amritu Kol Be Asara Shchinta Sharia, Kama Shchinta It Lechu. Right? When you say that on every assembly of 10, there's, so how many Shekhinahs are there? That, like, in every synagogue, there's a Shekhinah, right?
Right. והשיב לו משל מאור השמש הנכנס בחלונות רבים וכולי. And Rabban Gamliel replied with an analogy of the sun's light, which entered through many windows.
Yeah.
והמשכיל יבין, and the intelligent will understand, and as Hasidim would add, the devout will perceive.
Yeah. Got it?
He got it.
It was all very, very simple and easy.
Simple, and והמשכיל יבין.
Yeah, Hamaskil Yavin, yeah. Hamavin Yavin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a meaty one.
Yeah, lots and lots of Zohar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots to think about it. But very, very good stuff. Yeah, I mean the Ikar and Tafel, the main thing, and I think so. This is I feel is a very important insight that permeates a lot of different discussions and can affect a lot of different things. And I guess that's the same as the person that has been able to subjugate his evil midot, even though they still exist within him.
Right. It's so. I mean, what the Alter Rebbe is emphasizing throughout Tanya is, okay, in a very real sense, we say somebody who is not capable of constantly being a good person is not a tzaddik gamor. He's not completely, right? But does that mean that this person's actions and keeping of Torah and mitzvot is completely worthless?
Mm-hmm.
No, because at the moment that he does God's will, right, that's something infinite, and that's something real, and that's a revelation of godliness into the world.
Yeah.
Right? And while that's not of the same character as a true revelation of God that is permanent, it still has a godly capacity. And in a very real sense, that's what God wants, right? The Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu Dira B'Tachtonim, right? We want to reveal godliness in that which is least and lowest.
Yes, in every nook and corner, and that, yeah. So in every aspect, in every behavior, in every aspect of your life, you're trying to kind of like extract or reveal.
Yeah, and even though, we may only do that a few minutes a day, right? You would think, oh, since it's not the complete all of our lives, but really his point is that is not worthless. That is not nothing. That is also something.
Mm-hmm. So in the Talmud Bavli in Rosh Hashanah 17a, it says,
Yeah.
כל המעביר על מידותיו, מעבירים לו על כל פשעיו. So all who overcome their natural tendencies will find that their own inadequacies are overlooked in divine judgment.
Yes, because all of Hashem's midot are midah keneged midah.
Mm-hmm.
Just as if you are kind and merciful, God will be kind and merciful to you.
Mm-hmm. So if you put your mind to it and you understand the Ikal and you move towards that in the way that you can and from the level that you're in.
Yeah.
And Ashrecha.
Ashrecha ma tov chalkecha. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that quote was from that's the quote that is at the beginning of the Kabbalah forgiveness book, and
Ah,
I like that.
oh, right, because Tomer Devorah is very much about um, Mahu Rahu Mafatahu Rahu. However, God is kind, so should you be kind and forgiving. And yeah, he goes through all the ways in which God is very kind and forgiving, and so should we.
Very impressive that you got Shadow to be very calm while you're doing this.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, as long as you don't, as long as you do it on a regular basis and you don't cut them too often to the quick, which I hopefully very rarely do. Um, yeah, it's usually not too much of a problem. You have to make sure you're doing it on a regular basis though. If you don't do it on a regular basis, then they become even more unhappy about it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I keep it right here and do it on a regular basis.
Close by.
Right, Shadow? And you don't need these long claws, do you? Because you'll end up scratching the entire world, won't you? Including me. What's your cat's name?
Bruce and Julie.
Bruce and Julie. I don't do human names for my animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fraud says every nook and cranny reminds me of the search for comets. Yeah, in a very real sense, it is the same thing. Yeah.
Right, and to elevate something, you want to both push something away and bring something and take something closer. So you need to clean up the chametz and also so to prepare it.
Sur Mera Seto.
Right.
Yep. Is that all we're going to talk about? Or we can end early.
I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have anything other top of mind.
Okay. It's not bad to end early every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, we ended early. I mean, I think we got through
2 chapters.
2 chapters.
2 meaty chapters.
2 meaty chapters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I am going to end this stream.